I'll call to order the meeting of the Apache Junction Planning and Zoning Commission. It is Tuesday, April 14th, 2020, and the time is now 7 p.m. And if everyone would join me, please, in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States
of America, to the republic, for which it stands,
one nation,
under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please, Rudy.
Commissioner Hanchey.
Present.
Howard.
Vice Chair Heck.
Present.
Commissioner Howard.
He did. He was on, Rudy.
What?
Willie, are you there, please? I thought I heard him chime in.
Commissioner Kreidler.
Present.
Commissioner McGraw.
Here.
Chairwoman Nesser.
Present.
Commissioner Uli.
Here.
6 present, 1 absent. We have a quorum, Madam Chair.
Okay, we'll move on to approval of the minutes. Consideration of approval of the agenda, do we have a motion?
Madam Chair,
Yes?
I move that this is Peter, I move that the Planning and Zoning Commission accept the agenda as presented.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
And would you state your name, please? Who made the second?
Mike.
Mike. We have a motion and a second. Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Uli.
Yes.
Commissioner Hanchey.
Yes.
Vice Chair Heck.
Yes.
Commissioner Kreidler.
Yes.
Commissioner McGraw.
Yes.
Chair Nesser.
Yes.
So moved, Madam Chair.
We'll move on to approval of the minutes, and this is for the minutes of March 10th, 2020. May I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
this is Vice Chair Heck. I move that the Planning and Zoning Commission approve the minutes from the March 10th, 2020 regular meeting.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Commissioner McGraw, second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call vote, please.
Chairwoman Nesser.
Yes.
Commissioner Uli.
Yes.
Commissioner Hanchey.
Yes.
Vice Chair Heck.
Yes.
Commissioner Kreidler.
No.
Commissioner McGraw.
Yes.
5 in favor, 1 opposed. Motion passes, Madam Chair.
Okay, we'll move on to the public hearings. The first hearing is presentation, discussion, public hearing, and consideration of case PZ-3-20, a request by the Richard Lauver and Ariel Lauver Trust. Sydney.
Good evening, Madam Chair and Commissioners on the phone. For the record, my name is Sidney Uriah, Senior Planner here on staff. Tonight I'll be giving a presentation on villas on Superstition, PZ-320, item number 6 of your agenda tonight. Everyone should have received the presentation in advance. If you have any questions, feel free to interrupt me at any time. I'm on slide 2 now. On the aerial map. The project is located on the northeast corner of Superstition Boulevard and Main Drive. Its current zoning is RSGR. The applicant is proposing RM1 plan development zoning. This project will need a minor general plan amendment. Its current designation is medium density residential, and its proposed designation is high density residential. This will help the applicant facilitate a 52 unit leased residential community. I am now on the zoning map. To the north of the project, we have Stagecoach Trails, zoned RS5 PD. To the east, we have Ironwood Self-Storage, that is zoned B1 PD. And then to the south and west, we have both B1 and RS10 zoning. I am now on the proposed site plan and landscape plan that notes the overall layout of the project. Residents of the community will be entering the project via Main Drive. It will be a gated community. There's clusters of buildings on this site plan and on this landscape plan. Some of those buildings will consist of 2, 4, or 6 units. They have the faces of the units will face the amenity area in the center. We also have 17 garages that are located towards the east. Part of the amenity package that the applicant has proposed is a pool, along with cabanas, a barbecue area, a grass area in the center, and also a tot lot for children. I am now on the proposed elevations exhibit. The exhibit at the top shows the front elevations that I just mentioned. There is a varying roof line that the applicant provided. There's also multiple material types and colors. The exhibit, or the picture in the middle, is the rear of those units. Also, a lot of movement in the roof line architecture. There's pop-outs and windows. And then elevations east and west are what they will look like from the side. As I mentioned in the beginning of the presentation, this will be a planned development. Its current zoning is RSGR. They're proposing to rezone this to RM1 PD. The reason why there is a PD is because they're asking for only one deviation from the zoning ordinance of a 20-foot rear setback is standard. They're asking for a 15-foot, so just a 5-foot decrease into that standard. As just like any other project, this project was properly advertised in the newspaper. There was also mailers that were sent out in a 300-foot radius of the site. The applicant also held a neighborhood meeting, which was held on March 24th. No one attended the meeting in person, but the applicant did receive an email and a phone call from one of the neighbors with general questions. Those questions and the details of that email are noted in the staff report. As of now, staff has not received any comments regarding the proposed project. With that said, staff is recommending approval of PZ 320, subject to the conditions outlined in the staff report. Commissioners, that concludes my staff presentation. The applicant is also present if you have any questions for myself or the applicant.
Does anyone have any questions for Sydney?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
this is Commissioner McGraw. I've seen this more than once, so I'm curious why the setbacks.
We can't hear you, Mike.
Why are the setbacks shrinking?
Commissioner McGraw, we're having trouble
He
hearing
wants to
you.
know why the setbacks are shrinking. So when you do the comparison table, it's just this one, correct?
Correct. Commissioner McGraw, the only setback that is shrinking is the rear yard setback, and that is for the north side of the development. The applicant just needed a decrease of that 5-foot setback to still provide a rear yard for the residents on the north side of the development.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Yes, I do, Madam Chair. This is Shirley Uli speaking. Sydney, are these to be single-family dwellings that are going to be up for sale, or are they rental units?
Commissioner Uli, these will be leased units. The industry is coining the term as a kind of a leased residential community because they are single-story units.
Explain that to me. I don't quite understand what that means.
Sure. So the architecture of the project mimics a single-family home in terms of it being single-story. There is no one to the front or to the rear view, no one to the top of you. Correction, there will be people to the side because of the clustering of the units, but it will be a leased product.
So these people will be renting these places then?
That is correct.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Madam Chair, it's Vice Chair Heck. Sydney, I think this question's for you. There will be, I'm assuming, at least one uncovered parking space for each unit, and then the garages would be upgrades if someone wanted to pay extra for a covered spot for the garage. Am I correct?
Commissioner Heck, that is correct. They have ample parking. They've actually provided additional parking than what the ordinance requires. And also there's 17 garages that is first come, first, you know.
Sydney, I think the first part of his question was that everybody would have a garage, and that's not the case.
No, I wanted, is, every unit is guaranteed one uncovered spot.
Commissioner Heck, that is correct. And then the garages will be
Okay.
served as available.
Right. Okay. Now, will there be, this is pretty tight quarters. Will there be, will there be parking for visitors and that sort of thing? Because there's not a lot left out there. So is that built into this?
Commissioner Heck, yes, the applicant has provided visitor parking near the entrance, and there have also, the applicant has also provided additional parking that is additional to what the ordinance requires, that will be available for visitor parking.
Okay. And the fire districts, Superstition Fire is good with this? They have no problem getting maneuvering around in here?
Commissioner Heck, that is correct. Part of the submittal, the applicant provided a turning radius study, so a full fire apparatus could maneuver freely through the site without any problem.
Okay.
Anyone else?
Yes, Madam Chair, this is Commissioner Uli. I have another question. And as far as the leasing arrangements on these facilities, is that going to be handled by a local real estate agent, a trust? How is that leasing arrangement going to be made?
Commissioner Uli, it is my understanding that there will be a leasing agent on the premises at all times. That will be located near the entrance.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Hearing none. Thank you, Sydney. And we'll ask the applicant if they would like to come up and tell us what you'd like to let us know.
Madam Chair, Commissioners, my name is Dane Astle. I'm from 2522 East Inglewood Street, Mesa. I'm the architect and applicant for the project. I just want to say thank you for hearing the comments today. Nothing specific nor anything more from me. Appreciate that.
Does anyone have any questions for the applicant?
I guess, Madam Chair,
Yes.
this is Vice Chair Heck. So will the leasees, will they be paying a premium or something for maintenance of the amenities in the common areas?
Correct. That'll be included in their lease and will be run by more or less what you'd consider an HOA, but it's all within the lease. So yes, that's part of their cost monthly.
Okay.
Okay, so they must pay for that. They cannot opt out of that.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
Commissioner Hanchy, does each unit pay to the fire district on this, or how is this set up for that? Because I know, like in regular parks and stuff, it's like a one fee, and on these, what's the fee going to be paid like? Is it like an individual resident? Does each resident pay a fee, or?
It's going to be, this is Larry Kirch, it's one parcel, so the property owner will pay the property taxes, and they'll get their income to pay the property taxes from the leases. So that will be the Pinell County property tax, the school district, the college district, and the fire district. So they'll just be one property owner that will pay the taxes.
Basically, this is just like an apartment complex. They're paying rent.
Correct, but it's
Yeah.
a concept that you
Right.
see all over the valley now. I think this is one of the better examples that we've been able to see. We drove around with economic development, myself, Rudy, Sydney, and toured about 6 of these. And some communities are having some issues with them long-term, and so we wanted to make sure that this being the first one here, that it's we've kind of learned the lessons from the other communities around the valley that have seen this product.
Anyone else have any questions for the applicant? Hearing none, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any discussion?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
Vice Chair Heck, Larry made that comment that there were some cities were having some long-range issues with some of these leased residential communities. Larry, can you give some details? Is that just like upkeep and
Sure.
maintenance
Well,
and-
long range is not really that long. It's maybe a year and a half or two. But the products that were first coming out were, people liked the concept, but the architecture was poor, the quality of the materials, all that. And so some cities are kind of, I think we talked to somebody at Gilbert, they had 5 of these projects being proposed at one time. So everybody is ratcheting up kind of their design standards. So it's mainly in terms of design quality, and I think that's what the lessons we have learned from other cities, that some of them are now just, you know, they're going to have them, they're really going to make them go through, you know, a much higher design quality.
Okay.
So I think based on what we've seen, this is on the high end of the scale.
Good. Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
Commissioner Hanchey, this is essentially just an upper scale apartment complex, correct?
Well, again, it's not real, I mean, apartments, it's a rental product, but they're all, again, it's not like you have one building with 30 units in it, if that's what you mean, but.
No, I'm just, it's still rentals and it's basically an upscale
Yeah.
apartment complex, but you know, you're not just stacking as many in, and you got a little more space. Because nobody can truly buy these. They're not townhouses, none of that. It's all rental.
Yeah, they're not set up as condos that could be platted later. I mean, not that they couldn't, but it's really not set up that way now.
Anyone else have any questions, discussion?
Yeah, Madam Chair, this is Vice Chair Heck again. So Larry, I think I'm of the understanding that this is not at all a rent-controlled situation. This is upscale, and it will not be for rent control.
No, it's not a tax credit project, if that's what you mean. It's not, no.
Yes, yeah. Okay.
Again, some tax credit projects, by the way, are very high quality, by the way, so just so you know.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, I know that. Yeah, I know we have a couple
Sure.
here, but this one I thought it seemed like to me it's going to be a little more upscale than those.
Anyone else?
Yes, this is Commissioner Uli. And Larry, how does this project fit into the needs of the general plan?
Well, the city has, you know, a variety of housing stock right now. We have seen some single-family infill. We don't have a lot of rental products at all, and I think the general plan certainly, this certainly is compatible with the general plan in that we need housing types for all different types of lifestyles. The projects we visited, some will have, you know, single people, they'll have families, they'll have, you know, folks over 55, so there's a variety of the demographics of these products is really across the board, which again I think is nice in a community that some people want to live in an over 55, some people are over 55, but they don't mind having kids around. So again, I think it will work out for the school district with some hopefully some younger families in there.
Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Yes.
Question for Sydney. Sydney, is this a minor amendment to the general plan?
Yes.
Rudy, that's correct. It's less than 10 acres, so it's considered a minor general plan amendment that follows the same rezoning process.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
this is a public hearing.
What's that?
This is a public hearing, I believe.
Okay,
I know no one's here, but you need to announce it.
yeah. Just for clarification for anyone, I don't suppose there's going to be an enormous amount of children living here, because if you notice, all of these units are just 1 and 2 bedroom units. There's nothing larger than that, correct?
Right, and when we went to visit in Mesa, school bus came by, like about 8 or 10 kids got off the school bus, so out of 50 units, that's not a lot. So maybe that was only one school, and we have several schools. But yeah, I would agree, it's not like gonna be 100% families in there.
Okay. Anyone else have any discussion or comments? Hearing none, I'll close the discussion portion and open it up to the public. And since there's no public here, I will close the public portion of the meeting. And I'll open it up for a motion.
All right, Madam Chair.
Yes,
So before I make the motion, I believe I need to go through the findings for the rezoning plan development, the three findings, as well as the 6 findings for the minor general plan amendment. So I will do that quickly here. In terms of the findings for the rezoning plan development, number 1, that a better design cannot be achieved by applying the strict provisions of the underlying zoning district. Do any commissioners have any question or have any concern related to that?
hearing none, going to number 2.
Okay. Number 2, the strict adherence to the provisions of the zoning ordinance is not required in order to ensure the health, safety, and welfare of the inhabitants of the proposed development. Do commissioners have any concern relative to the applicant's response? Okay. Number 3, strict adherence to the ordinance is not required to ensure that property values of adjacent properties will not be reduced. Do commissioners have any concern relative to the applicant's response? Okay. So then the second part, now the findings related to the minor general plan amendment. Number 1, whether the amendment proposes a land use designation that the land use plan map does not adequately provide optional sites to accommodate. Any concerns from commissioners relative to the applicant response? All right, number 2, whether the amendment constitutes an overall improvement to the general plan, will not solely benefit a particular landowner or owners at a particular point in time, and is consistent with the overall intent of the 2010 general plan. Commissioners have any concern with the applicant response? All right, number 3, whether the proposed amendment is justified by an error in the 2010 general plan as originally adopted. Any concerns with the response?
I only have a question exactly. Rudy, what exactly, or Sydney, what does number 3 mean? Specifically? I don't understand, justified by an error.
Madam Chair, sometimes there's an error or a conflicting language in a general plan. Sometimes the general plan conflicts with the actual map, as in this case, there is no conflict, so there is no error on the 2010 general plan.
Okay, thank you.
Right, thank you. All right, number 4, whether the proposed change is generally consistent with goals, objectives, and other elements of the 2010 general plan. Commissioners have any concern with the applicant response? All right, number 5, whether the proposed change is justified by a change in community conditions or neighborhood characteristics since adoption of the plan. Commissioners have any concern with the response? All right, then, last one, number 6, has a number of different facts. So number 6, whether the amendment will adversely impact a portion of or the entire community by A. Anybody have any concerns with that response? All right, B. That response, and I won't read them all, I'll just identify them. C, any concerns with the response from the applicant? All right. D, any concerns from the commission? All right. E, any concerns regarding the response? All right. F, any concerns with the applicant response? All right. G, any concerns relative to the applicant response? No. H, any concerns with the applicant response? All right. I, any concerns with the applicant response? All right, and then J, any concerns relative to the applicant response? All right, that being said, then I'll make the following motion. I move that the Planning and Zoning Commission recommend to the Apache Junction City Council the approval of plan development rezoning case PZ-3-20, a request by Rob Hale and Dane Astle of Edifice Architecture for a 52-unit leased residential community, tentatively to be named Villas on Superstition, located at the northeast corner of Main Drive and Superstition Boulevard, from RSGR, that's General Rural Low Density Single Family Detached Residential, to RM-1 PD, High Density Multiple Family Residential by Plan Development, and a minor general plan amendment from Medium Density Residential to High Density Residential, subject to the following conditions of approval. And I am incorporating or submitting approval of all 7 of the included conditions as stated on the staff report dated whatever date, April 14th.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Who made the second?
Commissioner McGraw, second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Roll call, please, Rudy.
Commissioner McGraw.
Yes.
Chairwoman Nesser.
Yes.
Commissioner Uli.
Yes.
Commissioner Hanchey.
Yes.
Vice Chair Heck.
Yes.
Commissioner Kreidler.
Yes.
6 in favor, motion passes, Madam Chair. This goes on to the City Council with your recommendation for approval with all 7 conditions.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll move on to the next hearing, which is presentation, discussion, public hearing, and consideration of a request for a continuance of case PZ-1-20, Old West Highway Village, to a later undetermined date.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll be handling this for Nick tonight. Madam Chair, we've come to you with this item twice. These folks got basically caught up in a case of very bad timing. Of course, the COVID situation is going on. They have had to change out their design team. They're trying to change out their design team. Difficulty finding people in offices. A lot of people working from home. Communication is difficult. Hiring people is difficult right now. I believe we came to you the first time in your second meeting in February. And at that time, staff had recommended a continuance to give the applicant more time to work on better exhibits, present a better presentation to you, hopefully similar to the one we've seen tonight. And then on March 10th, we came to the commission again. This time the applicant asked for a continuance because, once again, for the reasons I just stated previously. I spoke to them last couple of weeks and to ask them for a status on what was going on, and that's when they revealed to me that they were having all of these issues. Because of the unusual circumstances, we reasoned, you know what, let's just continue this to an indefinite date. more than likely, it'll come back to you in the summer sometime, and at such time as we do receive the exhibits, have had time to review those, and are ready to bring to the commission and city council a good representative presentation of what the applicants propose. Of course, the meetings will need to be re-advertised. Once again, the meetings are going to be re-advertised at the applicant's expense. In your packets, you have a memo where basically I outlined our points of agreement, and then and then the case can continue. Once we have new dates certain, they'll need to post a new sign. We'll notify all the neighbors once again of the new public hearing dates, and come back to you with a case we can comment on, with a case we've properly reviewed, with a case which has good exhibits. The applicants have told me that this is still very much a viable project that they want to move forward with. They just need more time because of the unusual circumstances. So, Madam Chair, staff respectfully requests that you continue this to a
Just continue.
to a non-specific date.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions for Rudy? Hearing none, I'll open this up to the public, and since there's no public here, I'll close the public hearing. Anyone have any discussion, concerns or comments? Hearing none, I'll ask for a motion for a continuance on this item.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
This is Vice Chair Heck. All right, Madam Chair, I move that the Planning and Zoning Commission approve the continuance of PD-1-20 to an undetermined date.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Commissioner McGraw, second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call, please, Rudy.
Commissioner Kreidler.
Yes.
Commissioner McGraw.
Yes.
Chairwoman Nesser.
Yes.
Commissioner Uli.
Yes.
Commissioner Hanchey.
Yes.
Vice Chair Heck.
Yes.
So moved, Madam Chair.
Okay, we'll move on to old business, and the item is presentation and discussion on the legislative history, adopted ordinances, and related council minutes of the regulation of cargo containers.
Good evening, Madam Chair. This is Larry Kirch. I'll take on this one, and I'll ask Rudy to pitch in where he can. Maybe this isn't the best forum or format of a meeting to kind of have a discussion, but we'll give it a shot anyway. But we brought this to the Planning and Zoning Commission a couple months ago as a discussion item, and at that meeting we laid out very briefly what the current regulations are. In essence, you had to meet two tests. You had to be zoned RSGR, and you had to have 1.25 acres. That would be net even, right, Rudy? So if you had given up your FPEs, but as long as you originally had 1.25 acres, you could have a cargo container, apply for a permit, meet the landscaping requirements, and the painting requirements, we would issue a permit.
Correct.
So you had also, so we gave a number of other options in that discussion, but at the end of the discussion, commissioners wanted to know the legislative history of how the city got to discuss cargo containers way back in the day. And so there were a series of ordinances and then ordinance amendments and minor tweakings, if you will. And the ultimate regulations originally the regulations were put in the Property Maintenance Code in Chapter 9. So we recently amended our Property Maintenance Code, and we deleted the cargo container regulations that were in Volume 1, Chapter 9, Health and Sanitation Code, and in 9-1-5, I believe. So we wanted those deleted because they were outdated and they were not consistent with what's now in the zoning code. So what we have currently in the zoning code are the cargo container regulations for both commercial businesses and for the RSGR. So what we did then is we went back to those original ordinances and got the accompanying minutes or work session minutes on those. that shows you the history of how they came to be, what the community discussion was, and how the council eventually settled on limiting them to the RSGR and the requirements you have to have an acre and a quarter. We're talking about residential. Now, in commercial, you can have them. You can only store materials that are part of the business, still have to be screened, et cetera. So I'm not going to, you've had perhaps a week to read, let's see, I'm just counting them here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I think it ended up being about 60 pages of minutes. And what I did is I went to each of those, just culled out the minutes that were related to the discussion, and then you have copies of the ordinances, the historic 3 ordinances, and then what's currently in the zoning code. So again, part of the discussion also last time related around just perhaps regulating these as if it were an accessory structure, because generally they're over 120 square feet, and if they met the setbacks, would they be allowed in perhaps many zoning ordinance? I will tell you anecdotally that we got a request 2 weeks ago if someone could put one of these in their front yard, and they were in a conventional subdivision. So we said, no, you can't use it for like a storage building in your front yard. So we do get all sorts of requests, as I indicated, and I indicated to the council that a goodly percentage of our permits are after-the-fact permits because people don't know about the regulations, or they, we just took a big case. The guy had, I think, 4 or 5 of them to court, and he just showed up over on Cortez, I think it was? Cactus, with 5 of these storage containers. So if it would be my preference, if there's a recommendation, it's just to leave it as is my recommendation. We could spend an awful lot of time on it, but I think it's already hard to police now. And so if we allow these as storage containers throughout the city, we probably would have to hire another code officer or 2. So it's up to your discussion at this point. I just wanted to present the information that you requested, and now kind of you folks can decide where you want to go with it.
Okay.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Larry, specifically, why did the city council push this back to us for discussion? What was the impetus for that?
Well, I gave the council, one person came to the call to the public. That person is zoned RSGR, but they only have an acre. That person indicated that they had a lot of older sheds. They kind of got flooded out maybe last September. We had that big rainstorm in September, and a lot of and they were a recent owner, but they couldn't understand why they could not replace. You could get rid of a couple of sheds with 1 storage container. So that's what started it. And then we came back a couple months later with a short presentation, again, just reminding the council what the ordinance was. And then we also discussed essentially what I did tonight, was kind of discuss the history and the code compliance issues we're following. But essentially it was one person who said they would like a cargo container, but they can't comply with the acre. So then the discussion was, well, why can't it be RSGR and just lower it to 1 acre? Isn't that a big enough lot to have a cargo container? And so then that opens up this other larger can of worms. Well, what if someone has 0.99 acres for whatever reason? So that's kind of where it started. I maybe Rudy or Joel can help me out here. The discussion wasn't necessarily that they were just kind of foisting this upon you, but I think they thought you could have a reasoned discussion, come back with a recommendation.
Any other questions?
I don't have any question, but I have a comment. Anything that appears on anybody's property that requires a permit needs to come through planning and development. I don't give a damn if it's a cargo container or what it is. If it requires some kind of building structure, it needs a permit. End of story.
Yeah, we do, I think historically, just to comment there, we have a lot of folks historically that do stuff without permits. We can't, this is just another example of another type of activity that happens on a property without permits. So we get a lot of carports, shade structures, PVC, plastic car covers, you name it. Many of them in the setbacks, and so again, sometimes it's the nature of the beast, where people they have stuff to store, and so they're trying to find a way to store it all.
I understand that, but
Yes, they're all supposed to get permits, yes.
and people need to understand that. So we probably need to be doing some educating here.
Yeah, we've done a series, I think we did 4, not op-ed, but letters to the editor or press releases. A couple months ago, we wanted to do it during the height of the winter visitor season. We had one about putting, address numbers on your property. You can't live in a shed in your backyard. You can't have more than one RV. So we've tried to do that. We probably need to do more of that in the fall. And now one of the local newspapers is now online only. Not that we can't do that, but they're both now online. One is monthly, so writing kind of a public service announcement becomes a little more difficult in today's day and age of, we can put stuff out on the website and have pamphlets and things like that made and do the best we can.
Okay, Larry, thank you.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Larry, after reading the saga from 1988 to 2010 on these containers, I'm in total agreement with you. I think they zeroed in on what is good for everybody at 1.25 acres and the commercial asset. I do have a question, though. Was the front yard that they wanted to put this container, was it on a 1.25 acre lot?
No, it was like single-family lot. It was, I think it was an RS7 zoning, so it was a 7,000 square foot lot. And we've had another, and I'm not trying to blow up how this works, but, we have had one recently, I think 2 years ago, where the guy was remodeling the inside of his house, put everything in there, fixed up the house, maybe there was a fire, and again, sometimes there's legitimate reasons for having these, and whether there's a temporary permit or something like that, and then essentially converted it to an office, and then, we're spending months and months trying to get them out of there. So, again, sometimes, I know, like during construction of a house, we allow them for 8 months if you're out building a house and you want to, the city has made a lot of, in my opinion, accommodations in our zoning code. If you want to live in an RV while you're building a house, or you want to have a storage container while you're building your house, we allow it. But once the house is built, then we're out there trying to make them get the RV back where it should go, though. So that was a 7,000 square foot lot.
Larry,
That's funny.
would you
Thank you, Larry.
Yep.
kind of expound for us what the opinion of planning and development is of the size of the lot? What makes the difference, whether it's that it should be 1.25 acre or 1 acre or a half an acre or, whatever? What's the reasoning?
Well, again, I think, and maybe it's an equal protection thing or something that Joel says, I don't know that you can just kind of say, well, you can have them in these 3 zoning districts, but you can't have them in that one, and then someone says, well, why does that guy across the street, he's zoned RS10, but I'm RS7, and why can't I have it? And I think the accommodation for a larger lot, that originally some of the discussion was about people using them to store their tack and use them on large lots for kind of a quasi-ag type purpose. Part of the issue that I brought up to council, and maybe here as well, is that we have some historic illegal or not quite so legal lot splits. So if you had 1.25 acres and you divvied it up into 3 lots, now you have 3 RSGR lots where the zoning is RSGR. And so if you just say they're allowed anywhere in RSGR, well, then you'd have that situation where We have some, and again, maybe not that many, I don't know, Rudy might hazard to guess, 100 non-conforming RSGRS lots around the city. So if you just open it up to all RSGR lots, then you'll have some that have the zoning but not the lot size.
But why specifically the size? The determination that it's got to be 1.25 acres?
Well, because that is our GS zoning
yeah,
district.
true.
So that is the minimum lot size. So essentially, it fits into the so-called equestrian type property that's an acre and a quarter, and that's where the council, again, through between 22 years, decided that's where it was a good landing spot for
I
them.
was assuming that, but I just wanted to
And I
hear
think
if that-
going back to the discussion, there was a point of where they were considering not doing them at all, and then a council member said, well, let's talk about it some more, and then they end up with them, so.
Any more questions?
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I do. This is Chairman Hanchey, or Commissioner Hanchey, I'm sorry, Madam Chair.
Okay.
I guess I got high aspirations.
Yeah, it helps to give your name, because otherwise we're sitting here trying to guess who's talking.
Yes. I am under I would like to see them handled more like any other storage building. To me, these storage containers, the way people are doing them nowadays, they've come a long ways, especially in the last 10 years since this was last addressed. To me, these things are built a lot stronger than your typical sheds and stuff. They're a stronger building. You can make these things look nicer than a lot of sheds. I can go down and buy a cheap metal shed from any of the big box stores, and they won't hold up as well. So I think that we should really kind of take a look at this. And, a lot of these shed or containers, they are vermin proof. I think they are handy to have for, people that do have livestock. And, people that have under an acre and a quarter, they do have livestock rights, not necessarily horses, but they do have other livestock rights. So I think we need to take a look at this for the RS lots, for that purpose alone, because they do make a good purpose for that. And, to me, I don't see the difference of having one of these, and if we properly, make sure they get the proper permit setbacks and everything, I think it would be advantageous to the city, and making sure they do it right. And, in the long run, I think the city would gain from this.
Are you kind of saying if their property, if they could put a storage shed from one of the big box stores on their lot for whatever size, then they should be able to just at the same time be able to use a cargo container instead of a storage shed?
If the cargo container would meet the same size requirements. I ain't saying let them put a bigger cargo container on, but it would have to meet the same size requirements and everything, and the same setbacks as well.
Okay.
And I have a comment.
Shirley?
And if they were having animals, then they would have to also meet the zoning requirement.
Correct.
If there was an ag requirement, if it was zoned agricultural, they'd have to meet that requirement.
Right. This is Commissioner Hanchey. Yes, that's what I was saying, because if you're in the GRS, you have your livestock rights as well. But even if you don't, but if you have those, I was just using that as an example. Just because I don't have horse rights, I could have livestock rights, and these buildings are valuable for those other purposes as well. You keep your feed and that type of stuff in there. You don't necessarily have to have horses, and everybody kind of zeroes in on that. If you have horses, you got to have at least an acre and a quarter. Well, there's other purposes. There's other animals besides horses.
Refresh my mind, Rudy, but aren't you allowed to have chickens, so many chickens in a residential neighborhood? So now we've opened it up to having cargo containers in residential neighborhoods of small lots just because they have chickens.
Exactly.
Yes, on any single-family residence zone property, you can have 2 chickens for every 1,500 square feet of lot area. No roosters. Chickens are okay, not roosters.
I mean, I'm not
Madam Chair?
disagreeing with you there, but I'm just bringing that up, playing devil's advocate. So, yes.
Madam Chair, is that
Yes.
considered livestock, though?
Huh? Is that
Would that be
considered livestock?
Livestock?
No, under the zoning code, we have large livestock defined and we have small livestock
But
defined.
it's still
So-
livestock.
Well,
Correct?
the small livestock, Rudy, do you want to go through the litany of things you can have in your backyard? No, you don't? Joel does not want to hear the litany of things you can have in your backyard.
Well, we could make a distinction.
But there is yes, we have a definition of large livestock and small livestock.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
there's a reason why a town like Gilbert exploded into the city that it is today, when it was also a farm community. And that is that they did away with things like containers. Recently, there was some kind of survey done where only 5% of the people in this city thought containers were a good idea. There was a statement made by one of the council members that when they're looking at south of baseline and AJ is going to take all that in, do we want to pepper that with containers? So we've got a rural area, we got 1.25 acres. I think the people would like to see it stay that way. And as we grow south, we grow with a more modern look instead of the farm look. Kind of like what Gilbert did.
Agreed.
So do I. I agree with that. Anyone else?
Madam Chair, this is Vice Chair Heck. So, Larry, those conditions are still, they have to be painted earth tones, and there has to be appropriate landscaping or screening or buffering. If that's, that's all still in place, correct?
Yes. So currently, if you want to get a cargo container permit, then you have to come in with a site plan and application, and then again, we check all the setbacks, and then you have to provide some sort of screening. I think we've been fairly generous on what counts for landscaping. I think when this first came out, again, like a lot of things, that there was an expectation that these things would be hidden, and the landscaping plans were really robust, and you were kind of hiding these things. And then over time, the city has come to allow, really tiny plants, and there's really not definitions in here that say, well, you have to have a certain, X number of 5-gallon plants or 10-gallon plants or whatever you want to use a landscape terminology. So I think over time we've just seen the landscape kind of disappear. So you come in with a plan once, it's usually drawn on a piece of lined notebook paper, and that's your landscape plan, and then we come out and inspect it, make sure it's there, and then we issue the permit, kind of to make sure you did it right. And then if they don't, it's a code case, but we never go back and make sure that, and generally they're painted, obviously, they're painted the earth tone color, but again, that's just an example where the landscaping hasn't been robust as I think when this originally was thought about.
Okay,
So
yeah,
that-
and I guess,
Go ahead,
Sorry.
Peter.
I guess that was part of my thing was, it seems like folks, when it comes to these cargo containers, you give them an inch and they will take a mile. And then all of a sudden, what was a good idea, all of a sudden becomes it takes on a life of its own. So I guess I am beginning to kind of rethink and think more in terms of what Commissioner McGraw said, which is let's
Yes.
leave it at the acre and a quarter, and that way it can be controlled, and folks are just going to have to live with that. And if they have them on lot sizes that aren't in compliance, they have to be dealt with. But I think we need to keep this as minimal as we can.
Okay, Shirley?
This is Commissioner Uli. I have one other comment. So in other words, Larry, when you issue the permit and the actual piece is put into place, you don't go out and actually have a walkthrough and do a kind of an occupancy permit sign-off thing. Am I correct?
No, we do. We go out and look at them, make sure the earth tone and the landscaping's done. A lot of it is you just can see them from the road, so you know, but they've applied for a permit, so we can go on their property and ask to see the landscaping and how they've addressed it.
So you do have a sign-off process?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
Any other discussion?
So I had a question for Joel. I mean, I didn't have this on as a motion, or can there be a motion? Right now it's just set as presentation discussion. I don't have a resolution or anything like that, but do we need to bring it back as a?
Because that's the whole purpose of this, isn't it?
They want a recommendation, but I
for city
didn't
council?
set it up for presentation, discussion, and recommendation. So if that's the case, then we gotta bring it back, unless a motion suffices, I don't know.
I agree,
Because if
Madam
we were
Chair.
going to vote on it tonight and make a recommendation, the public would need to know that, right? No?
I think you might want to have a public hearing on it next time, if you want. In case some people want to show up, the gentleman who wanted the original,
Right.
he might want to show up, and I suggest you put it in June or even July.
Continue it to a date certain?
Yeah, for a public hearing.
Okay. Good date, Rudy?
Yes, ma'am.
What's a good date?
We can bring it back in
July,
June or July?
Probably the second meeting, again, hoping,
second meeting in
fingers
July?
crossed, everything is kinda getting up. Yes, that's
What-
fine.
What date is that?
June 9th,
June,
Oh, I
that's
thought we
the
said
first
July.
meeting in July is,
July.
the chair was talking about July.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Well,
It's the 14th.
let's just be on the safe side and
Let's
push
take,
it.
call it July
Is that,
14th.
is that going to create any kind of inconvenience for that gentleman or anybody else?
Again, they were here back a long time ago asking for it after September, October, so.
Okay.
Again, I think we had other pressing things to do, like a general plan, and right now we're working on some things.
So the second meeting in July?
In
would
July,
be-
I think is fine.
What's that date, Joel?
That's the 14th.
14th of July?
No,
14th
No.
to the 28th.
28th.
Oh, second meeting?
Yeah,
28th is the second.
Yeah.
28th of July. So you want to make that motion?
Do I need, okay. Yeah, Madam Chair,
Yes.
this is Vice Chair Heck. I move that the Planning and Zoning Commission approve a follow-up date of July 28th to have further discussion and a public hearing regarding the cargo containers.
On what date?
On July 28th.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Commissioner McGraw, second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call vote, please, Rudy?
Commissioner Kreidler,
Yes.
Commissioner McGraw,
Yes.
Chairwoman Nesser,
Yes.
Commissioner Uli,
Yes.
Commissioner Hanchey,
Yes.
Vice Chair Hack.
Yes.
So moved, Madam Chair. We will bring this back to you at your second meeting in July.
Okay, we'll move on to new business, which is a presentation, discussion, and direction to staff on a proposed request for a city-initiated rezoning of 151 and 183 North Palo Verde Drive from RS10 to RM2.
Very briefly, Madam Chair, we've had several of these properties that we have discovered to have incorrect zoning. I think it was like within the last couple of weeks that we got a call from some folks whose parent owned one of these properties. The parent recently died. The family is trying to get the estate in order, and they called to find out what the zoning was, and lo and behold, we discovered that the property is incorrectly zoned. Then we looked at the little fourplex or duplex next door, discovered that that one is also incorrectly zoned. So we are simply asking, Madam Chair, for your direction to proceed with the city corrective rezoning for these two properties. The properties are already developed. They have either fourplexes or eightplexes on them, small properties, small multifamily developments, no new development proposed, just simply asking to correct the zoning. And that's about it, Madam Chair.
Okay. You got my vote. Anybody else have any discussion, comments? Hearing none? You want a motion?
Yes, ma'am.
A motion to proceed with a rezoning?
Yes, ma'am.
City
Director of staff
initiated
proceed with corrective rezoning.
corrective rezoning. Okay. Motion, please?
All right, Madam Chair, this is Vice Chair Heck. I move that the Planning and Zoning Commission give the following direction to staff. That staff initiate a rezoning of 151 and 183 North Palo Verde Drive from RS-10M, medium-density, single-family detached residential, to RM-2, high-density, multiple-family residential.
We have a motion. Do we have a
Further
second?
move.
Oh, sorry.
I further move that staff take all actions necessary to meet the legal requirements set forth in state law regarding notification of this pending action.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Commissioner McGraw, second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call vote, please, Rudy?
Commissioner Henke.
Yes.
Vice Chair Heck.
Yes.
Commissioner Kreidler.
Yes.
Commissioner McGraw.
Yes.
Chairwoman Nesser.
Yes.
Commissioner Uli.
Yes.
So moved, Madam Chair.
Okay. And information, any reports? Anyone? Anything? Director's report?
Madam Chair,
Oh, yes.
this is Willie, Commissioner Howard here.
Oh, Willie, when did you come in?
Hey.
So we can,
About 2 minutes after you guys started, I chose not to interrupt. I apologize to the group for not answering roll call.
no problem. We'll put you down as being present.
Yeah,
Okay.
Thank you, Willie.
Okay,
Director's report?
Just on the general plan, so we're still scheduled for that going to the ballot box August 4th. And everybody should have received a copy in the mail, I hope. And I really, again, want to thank Sydney and Matt McNulty, who's running the show here from the room in there. We got a great deal with ASU to print those. We got 75 copies. If someone would like another copy, let me know. We've distributed them to the Planning and Zoning Commission, Park and Recreation Commission, council, staff that worked on the plan, et cetera, et cetera. So I think it turned out really nice. And everybody, again, appreciate what a great job you did on that. We were working a little bit, Sydney and I, with the city clerk on the publicity pamphlet for that. So that, I'm not sure of the timing on all that, but I think things are proceeding with an August 4th. So get out and vote when you can.
I think I'll be voting that day.
Yeah, I think some of you will be voting that day.
We'll move on to selection of meeting dates, times, location, and purpose.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
this is Vice Chair Heck. I move that the Planning and Zoning Commission hold a regular meeting on April 28th, 2020 at 7 p.m. in the, hopefully, City Council chambers located at 300 East Superstition Boulevard.
We have a motion, selection. Do we have a second?
Commissioner McGraw, second.
Yes. Do we have, do you need a roll call vote on that? All of a sudden, I went blank. Rudy, roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Uli.
Yes.
Commissioner Henke.
Yes.
Vice Chair Heck.
Yes.
Commissioner Howard.
yes,
Commissioner Kreidler.
Yes.
Commissioner McGraw.
Yes.
Chairwoman Nesser.
Yes.
So moved, Madam Chair.
And unless I hear any objection, I will adjourn this meeting at 8:06 PM. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everybody. Great job. Appreciate your patience here.